Today we're looking at a mid-century home built for voyeurism in Fire Island, New York. And I know you might be confused about what a home built for voyeurism means right now, but you won't be by the end of this video. And I guarantee there are a few things that'll surprise you in this one, so let's look at it together. So here in the living room, we've got a lot of interesting elements to look at, and a couple things really jump out at me right away. First, this beautiful striped rug. I mean, a lot of people use rugs in the wrong way because they choose a rug that's too thin and it doesn't bring warmth to the space, or, and this is way more common, they choose a rug that's too small for the space. And what they end up with is a rug that looks like a hand towel that you just dropped on the floor. But this rug is big and thick, and it provides a ton of warmth underfoot, which just makes this room so much more cozy, especially in the winter months. And sitting on the rug on the right side are these two auto leather knitting chairs, which sit really low, which is really typical of mid-century design. But the focal point of this room, without a doubt, is this wood-burning stove. And they've done something really cool here, which is framing the stove with those square ceramic tiles behind it, which sets the stage for the room and forces your eye to look there first. And again, this is really common in mid-century design, using geometric tiles to frame a space and control your attention. And you might not notice what's happening, but you can't walk into this room without noticing that fireplace. But they've also done some nice work with colors here as well. The framed art on the wall perfectly matches the pillows on the daybed, and actually all the colors in this room work together really nicely, with these natural yellows and reds, and then more earthy tones through the greenish brown on the chairs, and a lot of brown on the floor and ceiling. And then there's this wooden panel, which is such a great addition here. You don't see something like this very much today, but using repeating patterns like this is a hallmark of mid-century design, so this is executed extremely well. Now, as we look at the room from a different perspective here, you can see that they've got at least one pillow matching the rug, and that's the one that's sitting on the floor here, but this is something you want to be really careful about, because this could definitely be overkill in some spaces, but it actually works really nicely here because they haven't overdone it. You don't have the entire room in red stripes, you just have the rug, which looks super classy, and this one pillow, which shows that it's not an accident. And you can also see how the daybed is hovering above the floor, which gives the room just a nice bit of depth. And then there's also this really cool light fixture hanging from the ceiling that goes all the way down to the floor, which again is another unique piece that just creates such a cool vibe in this room. So right beside the living room is the dining room, and we've got a pretty long dining table here that easily fits 6 chairs and could potentially fit 8 or even 10 people sitting here. And it's a really warm dining space because all the wood here sits in the same tone. The table matches the floorboards perfectly, and these cane back chairs, which are also pretty common in mid-century homes, they all carry the same light, natural wooden shade. And to me, the backs of these chairs also echo the wooden panel with the circular cutouts that we saw in the living room, which is a pretty nice way to connect these two rooms together. Now, I'm pretty surprised that they have the table sitting so close to the wall here, because if you look at these two chairs, it looks like they hardly have any space to pull out at all, which means it's going to be really tight if you're sitting on that side of the table. So I'd say it's probably a good idea to bring the table out another 18 inches or so just to give everyone a ton of space and open up the dining area a little bit more. I think I would have also opted for a larger piece of art in the center of this wall rather than this tiny piece that they've got in the top right up here. Once you pull the table out, you'll be able to hang something without fear of people bumping into it, and I think it could be the focal point of this side of the room and kind of mirror the fireplace, which is sitting on the other end of the room. And then they've got this huge paper pendant sitting over top of the table, which I would imagine in the evenings cast this really soft glow over the dining table, and with a few candles, I'm sure it looks like a really nice setup. And then over here on the left side, there's this set of open shelves tucked into the wall, and around the corner here is actually the kitchen. But I want you to notice the glass window here looking into the next room, because I'm going to talk about where that goes in just a minute. Now, unfortunately, we don't really have any good photos of the kitchen in this home. There's just this one photo which shows a really tight angle. Maybe they just use this property as a weekend getaway or something for homeowners who live in New York, but what I'm seeing here is that there's hardly any place to cook. The countertops aren't very wide, and there's hardly any shelving space at all, and obviously there's some part of the kitchen that we aren't seeing here, which I'm assuming has a stove, the fridge, and all that stuff, but this really seems more like a bar rather than a full-fledged kitchen. Because thinking about how wide the wall was in the living room, there's just not that much space for a proper cooking area. Plus, did you notice something else about that wall? It doesn't go all the way to the ceiling. So even if this was a full-fledged kitchen, without that wall going up to the ceiling, there's going to be a lot of sound and potentially smells that are moving from the kitchen into the dining and living room. And sometimes those smells can be pleasant, but oftentimes they're not. Plus, there's all the sound, so if you're hanging out in the living room and you want to relax in there, then you really don't want all the noise of someone cooking or doing the dishes to be spilling up over the wall and distracting you while you're relaxing. Now, the bedroom actually carries through a lot of the elements that we've seen in the other rooms so far. So I'm talking about the same wooden floors, the same dark wooden beams on the ceiling, and the same white walls. And I'd say they've done a couple things really nicely in here. First, the 2 lamps next to the bed give it a real boutique hotel kind of feel. But the second great choice was including this incredible picture window. Now, they've placed a desk in front of the window, which seems like a nice place to work from, but I'm not sure if I would want to be working in the bedroom so close to the bed. Most people like to separate their workspace from their sleeping space because it makes them more productive, but this might have just been a matter of not having enough square footage to put the desk somewhere more secluded. So if that's the case, I get it, but if they had another place for the desk, I think it would work better somewhere else, especially because whoever sleeps on this side of the bed is going to have to kind of shimmy around the desk and chair just to climb into bed. But the interesting thing I want to point out here is the glass window on the left side, which is the same window we saw next to the kitchen. And what it means is that they've actually got a glass wall in the bedroom that can't be closed off. This is a very unique design decision that I would not recommend for really anyone. But as you'll see, this is a bit of a theme in this home, and it's very particular to these homeowners. Aside from this home having some very beautiful elements, the homeowners have designed it in a way that includes plenty of opportunity for voyeurism. For example, let's look at the bathroom. You've got here this pretty typical bathroom sink, and next to the sink, there's another nice big window. Pretty innocent, nothing really to see here. To me, it does feel a bit campgroundy with this wood on the walls and the tiled floor, but overall, it's pretty tame. Now, when I was researching this place, I learned that the designers have designed this home in such a way that you can specifically see this urinal from the front door. And that wasn't a coincidence, that was a deliberate design choice. Now, that's certainly a bit weird, but it's not the worst thing in the world because when you're using the urinal, you have your back to whoever's behind you. But then you've got the shower, with this huge window beside it stretching down to your knees or so, and there's no curtain or frosted glass, so you're completely exposed to the outdoors and whoever chooses to look in. And we don't have any photos of the shower taken from outside, but you can see that this photo is of the bathroom sink, so I'm assuming that the shower is just out of frame somewhere, which means it's close to a pretty central part of the house. So look, this works for them, and I think that's amazing. But I really can't recommend putting a massive window in your shower or installing a urinal near your front door. You should only do this if you're extremely confident that this is what you're looking for, and you're almost certainly not looking for this. Also, you want to keep in mind that a property like this, as it is now, is going to be really hard to sell because you're limiting your buyer's pool by 99% or more by putting in these unusual features. So if the homeowners go to sell this place, they will almost certainly have to accept a serious price cut, or they'll have to renovate these elements out of the home before they put it up for sale so that they can find a buyer. But it's not just the bathroom elements either. That window going through to the bedroom is not something most buyers are going to want, and for some people, it'll be an easy reason to say no to buying this place. Now, going outside, they've got some nice little pathways around the home where the trees hang really low and the sunlight shines through. And they've also got this pretty minimalist table and chairs out here on the deck, but it's well shaded so you can eat here even in the middle of summer, and it seems like an awesome place to just wind down in the evenings, listen to some music, and have a drink. But in my view, the hidden gem of this property is the outdoor hot tub. It's just a little disconnected from the main house, but it's perfectly set up to entertain with these bleacher-style seats that allow for multiple different conversations to happen at the same time. And this is such an amazing amenity, especially in the winter months, because you can still use it. Just like my friends and I used to jump in the hot tub in the middle of winter when we were young. But there are two things that I don't love about this hot tub being built right into the deck here. Number one, and this might be something personal to me, but I would feel a bit vulnerable sitting down there with my head more or less level with the deck, because if anyone were to walk up toward the deck from below on the ground, then you wouldn't be able to see them. So I don't expect that this would happen regularly, but there's something primal about feeling vulnerable in that position, and I don't think a lot of people would be able to fully relax, especially if you're sitting with your back to one of the edges of the deck. But number two is that because the hot tub is built right into the structure of the deck, they can't change it for a different size in the future. So if you wanted to get something smaller or something bigger or something more rectangular instead of a perfect circle like this, then you have to redo the entire deck. And so in my view, that's a big oversight, and I would have just went with a standard hot tub sitting on top of the deck. You know, maybe they did this because the deck wasn't able to support all the weight of a hot tub, and they've got some sort of support like a concrete block below it. That's totally possible. But If there's no structural reason for doing this, then the smarter move is an above ground tub. So what lessons can we take from this home? First, you want to match elements sparingly. And they did this really well by matching the red stripes on the rug with the red stripes on the bedspread and pillows, but not overdoing it to the point where it becomes tacky. Second, always pay attention to layout and flow. And I think they kind of missed the mark here a bit by putting the dining table too close to the wall and cramming the desk into the bedroom when both would have benefited from more space. Obviously, these are small, pretty insignificant changes that you can make after the fact, but at least the way they're living in there now, I think could be just a little bit better. And third, be careful with making your home too specific to your individual needs. I'm not saying you should make your home generic or devoid of personality, but I am saying that if you have unusual hobbies, like spying on your spouse while they're in the shower, then don't build those hobbies into the architecture of your home if you expect to get top dollar when you sell. You can express your personality and enjoy those hobbies in a ton of different ways, but if you're going to build it into your home, then just expect that you may not get as high of a sale price when it comes time to sell. So if you like this video, I've linked to a few more in the description below, and you should definitely check out this one where I take you through a loft apartment in Brooklyn that's going to blow you away. I'll see you there.